Diseases specialist at New York Presbyterian Hospital, also the author of Superbugs, The Race to Stop an Epidemic. Dr. McCarthy, I want to start with this idea that it was out there potentially for 6 weeks. What does that look like? Because if it's flu-like symptoms, I got to be honest with you, for basically the whole winter, I kind of have flu-like symptoms. Lots of people do.
Right, so what this leads to is an uptick in influenza-like illnesses across the country. And we're seeing little spikes here and there. And the problem is we haven't been testing. In New York, we know there's a case now. The thing that didn't concern me is that there's a case here. It's that we've only run 32 tests in New York State this entire time. We've known about this virus since December. It's March. I was in the emergency room this morning seeing patients. I still can't easily order a test on a patient. This virus is spreading in our communities. We don't know how much, but the longer that this administration offers false reassurance, the longer that this scandal is going to go on. And at some point, if they don't change their tune, it's going to go from a scandal to a cover-up.
Even just last night, a White House official said to a colleague of ours at CNBC, again, went back to the, well, have you looked at the flu? There were 30,000 flu deaths last year. How do you counter that? What is your response?
Well, people will say, looking at the case fatality rate, this is probably just like a really bad flu season. Okay, that's 50 to 100,000 Americans who could die. So that gets my attention. The fact that we still haven't ramped up testing means we still don't know the full scope of the problem. But in the medical community, what we're talking about is that the containment period is over. We are now into something called mitigation, which means this virus is already spreading in our community and we are trying to lessen the severity of it. And there's a number of things that we can do. We can close schools, we can prepare hospitals, we can quarantine people. These are things that our administration and that the leadership is not yet talking about to the public, but that's what we're talking about in task force and in emergency meetings. The president created a chain of command here, where the vice president is the face of the response. And he is not giving us a fair assessment of what's really happening. What's really happening is not reassuring. This virus is spreading in our community, and we're going to see hundreds of cases this week, thousands of cases next week, and only then can we start to figure out how do we mitigate this pandemic.
And based on when you look at other countries, Italy, throughout Asia, is the most successful approach to containment this quarantine approach, which obviously is hugely disruptive and has massive economic impact?
Well, quarantines may be unconstitutional here. The thing that we have to figure out is how many people actually have it. If you have 30,000 people, it's pretty easy to decide to do a quarantine. If you have 100 or 50, I think this is really going to be on a tremendous regional variation. My parents live in New Smyrna Beach, Florida. I don't expect they're going to be having a quarantine. I work in Manhattan. I think we are going to be hit by this. I see schools being closed. None of this is being shared with the general public, but that's what doctors are talking about. And you know, the difference here is that I look into the eyes of scared and vulnerable patients every day. I was in the emergency room this morning. I can't bluff my way through this. I have to be honest with people. And the truth is that this is very concerning and that we still are not testing at full capacity. And that is a national scandal.
Even for people who get the virus, what are they most likely looking at? A bad flu?
Depends. So at the press conference on Saturday, Tony Fauci, the most respected infectious disease doctor in the country, came up and said, for 80% of people, probably just kind of feeling lousy, but for 20%, it could be severe infection leading to the ICU or death. And the risk factors are if you're elderly and if you have comorbid conditions like heart disease, cancer, obesity. So we're really talking about 100 million Americans who are at risk for a severe infection from an incredibly contagious virus. So the facts are not reassuring. All we're seeing is continued community transmission, yet we're being told that things are going okay and that you should live your life the way you normally would. That's just not the way we're talking about it in medical circles.
Then how are you changing your life? In the last week, you can't change the CDC rules, you can't change your hospital rules.
Yeah.
How are you personally changing your life and advising others?
Yep, so a few things I'm doing. Soap and water, washing my hands constantly. I'm avoiding touching my face, which is kind of hard to do. A lot of times I just want to scratch something and I don't. And we're also, we stopped shaking hands in meetings. There's a lot of elbow bumps. And when we see people who are coughing, we're kind of ducking away now. And we're trying to keep ourselves healthy. And what you're going to see are more and more quarantine type measures spreading throughout the country as we finally figure out who actually has this potentially deadly virus.
Dr. McCarthy, I'm not going to shake your hand, but I am going to thank you for helping us get smarter on this today.
Thanks for having me.
Straight